welcome to the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show. So before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and invite some people to this. Hope everybody had a great weekend. It was so nice. We definitely got to enjoy this weather as well. So we were doing presentations by a pool this weekend, which was nice. All right, there we go. Alrighty, so we've been going over the book by John Maxwell, which is Winning with People, and today we are on the synergy question. So can we create a win-win relationship? A win-win relationship basically is a frame of mind and heart that constantly seeks mutual benefit in the human interactions. So you want to follow the people principles, and the first principle that we're going to go over today is the boomerang principle. So when you help others, we help ourselves. So no man becomes rich unless he enriches others. So you want to ask yourself, do I experience a return when I help others? So where do you stand on the subject when it comes to giving to others? Are you, number one of the takers, where you takers and you just receive but you never give? Traders receive and then give, which that's a person where they're only going to do something nice for another person if they get something else in return. And then number three, the investors, where they give and receive. Now, ironically, by focusing on giving to others without expecting anything else in return, investors are the ones who experience the most synergy when it comes to win-win relationships. So people who invest in other people have these things in common. They understand that people are of great value. So people are an appreciated asset only if we are willing to invest in them. And most people left alone will remain alone. So investors also embrace the boomerang principle. So when people invest in others and know what the best way to help them. Sorry, had to look at that differently. So, here we go. So people who invest in others know that the best way to help themselves is to help others. You're not going to get anywhere unless you're willing to go out and help people and go out of your way to really see what these other people need, especially on your team. It is really impossible to get anywhere in network marketing unless you focus on the people that you're working with. And if it's always about what can they do for you, you're never going to get anywhere. And when you're running for a position, nobody's there to really help because they're like, well, you weren't really here to help me either. So you want to just go out of your way to really help these people. So when investors practice the principle of sowing, investors practice the principle of sowing and reaping. So we help others, we help ourselves. And whenever you give to another person, you will receive something in return that affects your valuables, your values, or your virtues. So your valuables, that's the material thing. So it might come back as maybe a gift or cash, who knows, whatever it is. It's a material thing. Values brings fulfillment and emotionally and spiritually. It's just going to make you feel better. And virtues, it'll develop your character. So every time you overcome greed by giving, you become less selfish. And every time you help someone, you don't immediately see a return. You become more patient, and it builds up your character. excuse me. And investors believe that helping others is a divine work of people. So we are in the people business, and you have to work with other people. If you don't get the mentality to give to others, you're not going to grow, and you're not going to be able to grow others either, because people are going to do half of whatever you're doing, and you have to create a group of people where people want to be in that group. And if you're not creating that yourself, everything always starts with you. And unless you are creating that environment with yourself, because you can't control other people, but you have to create that environment yourself in order to have other people do it as well. So, take investing in others to a whole new level. Jeff, did you want to do that part?
No, you can keep going and then I'll finish.
Okay. All right, so take investing in others to a whole new level. Number one is think of others first. We've heard this since preschool. But do we do it? Usually, not usually. Usually we're always thinking about me, but we're never really thinking about everyone else. We always hear we should think about others, and what sometimes we will say we need to think about others, but a lot of times we don't actually do it. So becoming conscious of it and really making it a goal to be like, okay, I need to stop. I need to think, how can I help people on my team today? Or who can I help today? Number two, focus on the investment, not the return. Focus on what you can do for the other person, not necessarily what you're going to get. Number three, pick out a few people with great potential. So finding a few people in your group that are working, and I'm sure Jeff will probably go over this once I'm done, is who are the people that you need to invest most of your time in that are really going to take off and do something. Excuse me. I might need my allergy medicine today. Excuse me. Number four, with permission, begin the process. So you can't mentor somebody unless they want to be mentored. Help enough people get what they want, you'll eventually get what you want. Yep. So get permission first before you mentor somebody, because nobody wants to be mentored unless they get your permission. Until you can't do it until they give you their permission. And then enjoy a return in due season. So when people's motives are pure and they genuinely desire to add value to others, they can't help others without receiving some benefit. So the return may be immediate or it may take a long time, but it will occur. And when it does, the relationship begins to resonate with synergy. So that's basically what I have for my notes today. It's something very easy to do, and it's also very easy not to do. You just got to be able to stop and ask yourself this question is, am I helping the people on my team, and how can I help somebody today? So with that is what I have for my notes. Jeff, do you have any comments on the chapter?
No, I'm kidding. So the boomerang principle, it says discuss these questions. How have you approached relationships as a taker, a trader, or investor? And I think most of us start out by basically takers. Why do we do that? Well, your basic human instinct is basically to take care of yourself before you take care of anyone else. That's just a natural principle of survival that we start out. And the unfortunate part is as John Maxwell talks about in the 21 Laws of Leadership, we take by nature. So it actually takes somebody to teach you how to, reciprocate that in another way, and it's going to take self-esteem. So you go from basically being a taker, and then you start trading. This person gives me this, so that therefore I will reciprocate that relationship when it's given to me. I mean, if you look at a little kid's going to scream, whine, cry, basically create a scene until you give them what they're looking for. Now, as a toddler, you can see as kids grow up, they'll whine, cry, throw a fit, throw a tantrum. The unfortunate part is some people never grow up and they still do this. You know, we're watching this on TV on a regular basis, you know, people throwing fits, not like recently, but like in general, over the last few years, you see people throw a fit. It's like people aren't really growing up and getting to the next stage. They're throwing a fit to get what they want rather than looking at what communication skills do I need to have to be able to influence people to make change. And then you have the investors. The investors is the smallest group. We were talking about last night on our show, I say on our show, at our school, the MLM Millionaire Academy, we were discussing the pyramid of motivation. And if you drew a triangle or a pyramid, if you drew a triangle, the triangle of motivation, the bottom, the base, is basically the unmotivatable. 27% of people are unmotivatable. There's absolutely not a thing you can do. Those are the takers. They're just looking to take, and then they're looking to complain, and there's not really anything you can do to motivate them. There's no relationship you're going to be able to build, or treat you're going to be able to give, or trick to be able to get them to do what they need to do to get out of their situation. They are happy, complaining, bitching, crying, whining. They're just there. And the crazy thing is they'll actually sign up in your business, which is even weirder. And sometimes they won't even get out. They'll just stay, just stay complaining year after year after year. And part of the reason they stay is because someone will listen to them. Someone will listen to them and pay attention to them here. And they look for groups that will do that. So what you have to do is you have to starve what you want to die and feed what you want to grow. That's a good analogy for a lot of things. Then you have the 60%. The 60% are motivatable. Now, they're motivatable based on what? Based on the relationship you have with them, based on their own internal drive, based on the situation, based on the timing, based on how they feel. 60% of people are motivatable temporarily. So you have to build a system that keeps these people on track and keeps them going from event to event, or from production to production. Because if you don't, they drift off. They're not going to do it on their own. 10% of people, 10%, are motivated, meaning they have internal motivation, they have internal inspiration, they don't need talk to, they don't need a lesson, they don't need push. They're going to go out and do every single day what's needed to be done without having to be told, without having to be shown, because somebody probably at some point came along and figured this out for them. The last part is basically the 3%. The 3% are the motivators. The motivators are the ones that can get the 60% on track. The 10% who are motivated usually look for somebody like this to be around because they're already motivated. The problem with motivated people is they're hard to find and they're hard to keep. The problem with motivators is they're even harder to find and harder to keep because they know how to make it on their own. Once you know how to make it on your own, you become very, very, very powerful and very, very influential, and it's much, much more difficult to bring somebody like that onto your team. So there's two ways to do it. You can either build them or find them. Chances are you'll probably find them easier than you will build them, which goes back to John Maxwell's 21 Laws of Leadership. If you want leadership, if you want to build a system, if you want to build a team, first of all, you have to understand what system you're actually trying to build, right? What are you trying to create? A lot of people just want people to listen to them. Well, there's more to it than that. The 21 Laws of Leadership is probably a good framework for this. The 21 Qualities of a Leader. The 21 Qualities of the Leader are probably another book that you're going to need to read if you plan on building any type of internal system. These are the qualities I want. The 21 laws are the lessons you want to teach, but the problem is then you're going to have to go out there and figure it out, which brings up a good point because we're going to be talking not tomorrow, but the next book we're going over is Failing Forward by John Maxwell. Failing Forward talks about the principle of going out and actually messing it up, trying to figure it out and pinpoint exactly what it takes. And guys, it takes a while to figure this stuff out. I don't care if you're building an organization inside of direct sales, inside of a holistic health company, inside of a real estate company. It takes a while to get these lessons. And most of the time, when we're going to learn them? We're going to learn them when we screw them up. You're going to learn them when you mess them up. It's just something that it takes out there in the field, unless you have really, really good mentorship and they come along and teach it for you. Josh, what's up, man? Hope things are going well out in LA. Good luck looking for a property right now. I would suggest away from the craziness, like you said. So that's just some of what it takes to be able to put this together. So that's the investor. The investors, what I see the investors being is that top 10% and 3% of the triangle of motivation. That's who you want to get around. That's who you want to learn from. Look for the people who are influential. 2, it says describe the characteristics of someone who values people and puts others first. It's really simple. They're the ones that walk into the room and everybody flocks to them. They're the ones that people go to. Think about when you have an issue, who you go to. Most of the time we go to a friend, somebody who will listen. Most people go to somebody who will just listen. That's part of it. That might be somebody who's reciprocating, but not necessarily investing. You're looking for someone who tells you the truth, not necessarily what you want to hear, and maybe even gives instructions on how to go figure it out yourself. You might not like that, but that's probably what's best for all of us. 3, it says, how should I go about the process of selecting people to invest in? Now, let's look at this chart. 27% of people are unmotivatable. So where are you going to invest time? Well, you stop listening to at a certain point, and Andrew Carnegie said this, I stop listening to what men say and I start watching what they do. So you can learn a lot from the history, some of its history of what they're actually physically doing. Look at their job history, look at their friendship history, look at how they treat others, look at how they show up or don't show up, look at how they, make excuses or make reasons. And you can start building this profile. Now, here's the thing. You want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt in the beginning and then let them eliminate themselves. If you want to build a super strong organization, you basically include everybody. Say, guys, we have this event or we have this exclusive group. You have to do these things to get into it. Everybody qualifies. Everybody. So you kind of want to open the door to everybody, because there may be that person who's never, ever, ever been included in anything that has the internal drive. They just don't know what to do. When you lay out the groundwork for this is what you have to do to get into this group, they will do what it takes to get into it. And that's what I look for. I look for somebody that kind of is rough around the edges, maybe has never heard this, but they have the internal drive. Drive is the one thing you can't teach. People either have drive or they don't. You can't insert drive. You can't play a movie for them or music or whatever. People just have it or they don't. And it's something that if you're around enough people, you're going to be able to spot it. And then what you want to do is once you spot it, that's who you start developing a relationship with, and you start trying to see if this person not only has the motivation, but has the willingness to change. Because they said in the book, Think and Grow Rich, there's 3 things you have to have. Number 1, you have to have a burning desire. That's the drive. Number 2, you have to be humble and teachable. And number 3, you have to have some kind of written plan to get what you want. If you don't have those things, you're going to be in trouble. You're just not going to get where you need to go. So you kind of cultivate that as you move up, let's say, or as you move on. You're always looking for that person in a market that could actually run the market without you. And sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it takes a group to cultivate that. Sometimes it's just one person. It just depends. So how should I go about the process of selecting people to invest in? Those are some of the key things, how they treat others. And that's why the 21 qualities of a leader are so good to understand and know. And then the 21 laws of leadership, you're able to basically pick these people out. I've got a great one for you. I just look online and see what people post. The minute they start talking about who they hate, who they dislike, you need to hate this person too, you're out. You're out. You're not a leader. You can't be. Because leaders don't point fingers to hate certain people. Leaders basically rise people up, and they're always looking to improve people, not teaching people what to do and who to hate and why they should hate them. That's not a leader. So I eliminate people very, very quickly just by looking at what they post on a regular basis. You can learn a lot about somebody's internal, are they hurting? On the inside by what they post, what their interests are, if their interests are, well, we want to get into that, but I just look online now, social media, if I'm going to hire, if I'm going to fire, if I'm going to bring somebody on board, just look at what they're posting. I mean, you can kind of figure that out. Number 4, what are your greatest talents and how can you use them to add value to others? What are your greatest talents and how can you use them to then add value? So understanding your strengths And that's, again, the 21 qualities of a leader. It kind of points out, okay, what am I good at? And then how can I use those to find people who are, basically you're going to attract people initially who are good at stuff you're not good at. And what you want to do is you want to surround yourself with people who necessarily are not good at what you personally are good at. But as a collective group, you kind of fill in those 21 qualities. Because there's going to be somebody who's really good at the big picture. And typically the person who's good at the big picture is not good at the details. You need the engineer. You need the accountant on your team. You need the architect. You need the nuclear scientist that's able to figure out exactly, hey guys, that's a great big picture, but we'd all die getting there because of this. You know, you need that guy on your team. So you want to surround yourself with people who have the same mission, who have the same purpose as you, but think different thoughts and have different personalities and different strengths and ways to go about it. What's up, Dave? What's up, Doug? So these are just some of the things that, you know, I see and some of the places to go get the answers. You want to learn the 21 qualities of a leader. You want to learn, bless you, you want to learn the 21 laws of leadership, so that way as you're building these teams and as you're working with people, you can point out and pick out. But the first person you have to know is you. And that's actually the hardest person to figure out. Why? Because a lot of times we're blinded by what we want. Sometimes we're blinded by our self-conscious and our subconscious. We're blinded by certain things, and that's why you have to be around really good people who tell you what you need, not what you want, which takes, you know, certain self-esteem. So that was 4 greatest talents. Number 5, what is your plan to intentionally invest in others? John talks about typically most people subtract from others. Most people subtract from others because the mission and the goal is to take care of self, not take care of others. That's your internal basic human instinct that allows you to drive and run yourself. That's a tough one, but that's the internal drive. You want to basically take care of self first. So it takes somebody to come along and teach this, and you literally have to think outside yourself, which means A, your self-esteem has to be in a right place. Your self-esteem has to be in the right place. You have to value you to be able to value others, is what John talks about. Now, how do you start valuing yourself? You start investing in yourself. You'll typically find someone who thinks very little of themselves does very little for themselves, meaning they don't eat right, they don't work out, they don't take care of themselves mentally, physically. A lot of times they're exhausted. Well, I'm exhausted. You know, I didn't eat. You know, I didn't sleep, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. You can tell they're torturing themselves. And what we're doing to ourselves, you can literally see on the outside what they're feeling on the inside. If you're okay with yourself to be able to look and actually see that. Most people don't. Why? Because they're too busy looking at themselves and taking care of themselves. So how do you invest in others? First, you have to invest in yourself. That's the first thing. You have to invest in yourself. Because if you don't value you, you're not going to be able to value anybody else. Once you invest in yourself, you start learning these lessons, then you can actually go out of your way to invest in others. Easiest way to do it, to start out with, is compliments. Compliments turn into relationships eventually, and relationships turn into instruction if you are doing what you're supposed to be doing. Now, if you're just trying to tell people what to do, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. There's a lot of things you have to understand about human relations. To be able to effectively motivate, to be able to effectively influence. You know, you're going to have to learn things like personalities. You're going to have to learn things like, you know, what people's internal drive motivation. You're going to have to learn things like what is their learning style, because everybody has a different learning style. Everybody kind of grasps this information differently. So those are just some of the things that I've learned over, you know, years and years and years of doing it wrong, years and years and years of basically taking rather than being able to give. But once you're able to kind of take care of yourself and you become okay with you and you get enough of this information, then it becomes easier and easier to be able to give and to be able to point it out. But if you're constantly worried about you and only you, it's very hard to give back to anybody. So you kind of have to take care of and be responsible for yourself first. Get yourself in line. Kind of like what the airplane always says, you know, put your mask on first before you put anybody else's on. It's very hard to give instructions about getting it all together when you don't have it all together. That's not being a great leader or teacher. So with that, that's what I got for today. Those are the 5 questions. And tomorrow, what are we going over?
Tomorrow we are going over...
I know we're at winning with people, but what are we going over?
the friendship principle. So that'll be what we're going to go over tomorrow. And if you guys would like the notes for these chapters, we are sending them out to our database every day. So if you'd like to subscribe to that, I will put a link in the comments below. And also, if you guys want to go back to some videos, follow our YouTube channel when you search MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show, and you can follow us there as well. So with that, we're going to be done for the day, and we will see you tomorrow.